How many times do we find ourselves wondering where Asians came from, or what is the origin of the Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans? These questions confuse our minds, as whenever we try to understand the roots of a people, we tend to think of the traditional image of Adam and Eve. So today, we will explore the origin of Asian peoples, a topic that arouses curiosity and fascination in many of us. Our search for answers will lead us to explore various sources, each offering a unique piece of this intriguing puzzle. However, we will embrace the biblical approach as a special lens for this journey of discovery. The Bible, our divine compass, is not only a spiritual guide, but also a rich source of history and culture. In the biblical accounts we find a treasure of wisdom that transcends centuries, offering valuable teachings about the origin and formation of peoples around the world. The book of Genesis, the foundation of the Holy Scriptures, emerges as a key source for understanding the genealogies and origins of peoples. It is here that we begin our journey in the extraordinary context of Noah and his sons. Noah, a righteous man in the eyes of the Lord, was chosen to be the herald of the preservation of life during the flood that transformed the earth. Upon leaving the ark, he brought with him a new opportunity, a fresh start for humanity. However, it is in the details of Noah's descendants that we find the seeds of the diversity that would flourish on earth. His 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were blessed and destined to be the progenitors of numerous nations. Today we will focus on Japheth, our starting point for unraveling the connections between the history of humanity and Asia. Japheth not only shared in his father Noah's blessing, but also played a vital role in the spread of humanity across the earth. Japheth, whose name means beautiful or to enlarge, was blessed with a lineage that would spread across distant regions. He became one of the essential links in the chain of history, connecting the past to the present and the future. Japheth's blessing is recorded in Genesis chapter 9, verse 27. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. The enlargement of Japheth is a promise of prosperity and expansion, greater than that given to Shem or Ham. It appears to be the most extensive promise, as Japheth is destined to inhabit vast territories, and this blessing is like a seed that will germinate into a multitude of cultures, civilizations, and peoples over time. The vast territory attributed to Japheth, as indicated by his blessing, spans a geographical area from the lands of Europe to the regions of Asia. The descendants of Japheth were designated to populate these lands, giving rise to a diversity of nations. The phrase, "Let him dwell in the tents of Shem," suggests a harmonious coexistence between the descendants of Japheth and those of Shem, his brother. The biblical journey of understanding the origins of peoples often leads us to facts that are evidenced by science. Today, there are studies that confirm the kinship between Asians and Europeans, reinforcing the biblical account and the understanding that the descendants of Japheth were indeed responsible for populating Europe and Asia. Delving into this genetic mosaic, we find the Cheonglu, an ancient Chinese tribe that, according to historical sources, inhabited the vast and distant Asian steppes in the 7th and 8th centuries BC. The mitochondrial DNA of these people, surprisingly, reveals not only a predominantly Asian heritage, but also a notable 12% European heritage. In other words, this Chinese tribe, rooted in the vast Asian steppes and far from the borders dividing Europe, still shares genetic traits with European peoples. The marvel of God's Word and the Bible transcends time, revealing itself as an inexhaustible source of wisdom and understanding. It is fascinating to note how the Scriptures, centuries before contemporary scientific discoveries, already outlined the complexity of the descent between Europeans and Asians. Speaking of fascination and curiosity, as we explore the roots of Greek mythology, we come across an intriguing coincidence that sheds light on the origin of the Asian continent. In Greek mythology, Asia is depicted as a beautiful woman, presented as the wife of a powerful figure named Japetus, a connection that, remarkably, has ties to biblical elements and leads us to reflect on the correlations between Greek mythology and what is actually written in the Bible. This raises the question, could Greek mythology, rich in symbolism, have absorbed distorted fragments of biblical stories? Could this Japetus, a character from Greek mythology, be the same person the Bible describes as Japheth, the son of Noah? It all makes sense when considering the similarity of the names Japetus and Japheth. It is also worth remembering that he likely named his vast territory Asia, certainly in honor of his beloved wife, as was customary at the time. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Japetus and Japheth were the same characters, or is this all just a coincidence? Also, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel, and let's move on to the video. Chapter 10 of the book of Genesis is known as the Table of Nations and describes the genealogy of Noah's sons after the flood. The verse that speaks about the descendants of Japheth is in Genesis chapter 10 verse 2, and it says the following: "The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras." This is the beginning of the genealogy of Japheth's descendants, which later expands to mention the nations that formed from them. The Table of Nations continues to detail the lineages of Noah's sons, offering a view of the origins of peoples after the flood. This chapter is like a map that guides us through the paths of the nations, revealing the richness and diversity that sprang from this blessed lineage. However, to facilitate our study, we will focus on Gomer, the son of Japheth and grandson of Noah. Though his presence in the scriptures is brief, his descendants played a significant role in the formation of nations and cultures that would flourish throughout history. The biblical account mentions that Gomer was the father of 3 sons, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah, just as Noah's sons were. Each of these names carries with it the promise of a lineage that would spread and multiply across different regions. As we explore ancient traditions, we discover that these descendants played unique roles in the formation of civilizations and cultures. Ashkenaz is often associated with the ancestors of the Scythians, a nomadic people who roamed vast stretches of Eurasia. Riphath, in turn, is linked to the Celts, contributing to Europe's cultural richness. However, it is Togarmah, Gomer's 3rd son, that captures particular attention when it comes to the origins of Asian peoples. Togarmah, the son of Gomer and grandson of Japheth, is identified as the primary ancestor of Asian peoples, especially those who inhabited the lands of the far north. This connection, traced through the scriptures, offers a unique perspective on the roots of Asians and their ancestral heritage. The etymology of the name Togarmah, with its linguistic variations, also reveals interesting nuances. In ancient Assyrian, the name Togarmah means ruler or merchant. In Hebrew, it is broken or pulled, and in Phoenician, pulled. The expression pulled or broken eyes refers to the unique physiognomy that defines many Asian peoples. The connection between Togarmah and Asian peoples is deepened further when we explore biblical passages such as Ezekiel, chapter 38, verse 6, "Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah in the far north and all its troops, many peoples are with you." This quote is set in a prophetic context where Ezekiel describes a coalition of nations uniting against Israel. The specific mention of the house of Togarmah in the far north points to a geographical identification of these peoples, suggesting a connection with Asian regions. This biblical reference has been explored by scholars to understand the origins and distribution of ancient peoples, especially those who inhabited the northern regions, such as the Asian peoples. The link between Togarmah and Asian peoples becomes evident when we consider the wide variety of nations and tribes that inhabited the northernmost regions, including the Chinese, Mongols, Japanese, Koreans, and Turks. This biblical approach not only highlights the diversity of these peoples, but also provides a profound context for understanding their ancestral roots. The Chinese, with their rich millennial heritage, trace their roots back to this ancestral legacy, marking China's trajectory as a cultural and historical powerhouse. The Mongols, in the vast steppes, unleashed empires that shaped the landscape of Central Asia. In the Japanese archipelago, Togarma's descendants gave life to a unique culture whose influence resonates globally. The Koreans, with their rich and complex history, represent another branch of this lineage, significantly contributing to the Asian landscape. Finally, the Turks, heirs of the bridge between East and West, carry a heritage intertwined with various influences. The grand promise, granted to Japheth to inhabit a vast territory, unfolded over the centuries, revealing itself as a prophecy that transcended the ages and continues to materialize. We observe, for example, how China, one of the largest countries in terms of population and territory, traces its origins to the descendants of Togarma and Japheth, fulfilling the content written in the Bible. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and click on one of the 2 videos that will appear to keep watching us. Best regards, and God bless you.